Welcome, everyone. My name is Beverly Bean, and the Peace Lantern ceremony tonight is our 19th annual Hiroshima-Nagasaki Remembrance, honoring those who suffered the atomic bombing in 1945. Each August, throughout Japan, people gather to float lanterns in honor of those victims and all who suffer in wars. Tonight, we reaffirm our commitment to ending nuclear proliferation and all warfare. Our program was developed by the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, Monterey County branch, and is also sponsored by the Peace Coalition of Monterey County, the Monterey Peace and Justice Center, Monterey Peninsula Friends Meeting, the Quakers, Veterans for Peace, Monterey Chapter 46, and the City of Pacific Grove. If you would like to make a contribution to this year's Peace Lantern ceremony, there are several donation jars on tables on the landing. I want to thank Shinso, Mugen, Daigo, the wonderful Taiko Drummers, for their exciting performance. The sound amplification is being provided by Stu Hayden. Thanks to Stu for his help tonight and over the previous years. Many thanks to Sylvia Shee of the Monterey Peace and Justice Center and her friends for transporting our tables, chairs, and other supplies. Many thanks to Catherine Crockett, President of the Monterey Peace and Justice Center, who organized the publicity, the technology, and the transportation of materials. Thanks to the City of Pacific Grove for having us, and to Pacific Grove Adventures for the electricity and for the loan of the kayaks. I am happy to welcome Elaine Gehrman, co-minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Monterey Peninsula, who will open the ceremony with a blessing.
Thank you, Beverly. Spirit of life, creative force of love in the universe, God of many names. We gather here this evening to remember together. We're here to remember the events of August 1945. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima on August 6th and Nagasaki on August 9th. We remember these events of 78 years ago. We remember our fellow humans who suffered, loved ones who were lost. We remember with sadness and compassion and love. In front of the Hiroshima Peace Memorial's eternal flame, the inscription reads, "Rest in peace. We will not make the same mistake again." We're here to remember, but not only to remember, to resolve. To resolve to continue the challenging struggle of nuclear disarmament and to work for global peace. To remember the victims and to pledge to work to prevent the making of the same mistake ever again. We affirm these words attributed to the ancient Taoist philosopher Lao Tzu. If there's to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there's to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there's to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there's to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there's to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Let us each recommit ourselves this evening to the goal of world peace, remembering those who have suffered and the lessons we have learned. Let us resolve to work for more justice, more love, and more peace, beginning with ourselves. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Elaine. That was wonderful. Catherine Crockett, President of the Monterey Peace and Justice Center, will dedicate tonight's event. Thank you, Beverly.
Tonight's commemoration is dedicated to the memory of two local peace activists, Peggy Olson and Joyce Vanderveer. Both were past leaders of the Monterey County branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and both were an integral part of this event for many years. In 2005, Peggy, along with Mishka Chudalowski and Janet Lenahan, conceived the idea of holding an annual Hiroshima-Nagasaki Remembrance. For 12 years thereafter, they organized this Peace Lantern ceremony. In 2022, Peggy Olson died at the age of 85. Peggy often spoke at these events. She was a relentless advocate for reducing the massive U.S. military budget that drives endless wars and sustains the ever-present threat that nuclear weapons pose to all of humanity. Peggy's activism very often took her to the gates of the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory in Livermore, California. There she joined others to protest the building of ever more powerful nuclear weapons. Those protests are still happening, and they are growing in size. In 2021, our dear friend Joyce Vanderveer died at the age of 92. She too spoke many times at this event. She would often recall the day in August 1945 when she and her father heard President Truman's radio broadcast that a huge bomb had been detonated over Japan. Her elation over the ending of the war turned to disbelief and horror at the destruction and annihilation inflicted on civilians. Her father, a physicist and a professor, had rejected an invitation to be part of the select group later called the Manhattan Project, the group that produced the first atomic bomb. As Joyce's nightmares faded, the reality of a global nuclear arms race took hold. That was the genesis of her decades-long advocacy for a worldwide ban on nuclear weapons. In her last speech in 2019, Joyce told us, "It's time to end the whole nuclear weapons era. The only power that can stop a global nuclear holocaust is people power. It's you and me and billions of others saying no to threatening the world with destruction, and yes to being good neighbors and good citizens of planet Earth. Yes to green, clean sources of energy." Thank you, Joyce and Peggy, for your leadership and your fearless, resounding voices. Let us continue their legacy as we look forward to a future where there are no more Hiroshimas and no more Nagasakis.
That was wonderful, Catherine. Thank you so much. Mayor Bill Peake of Pacific Grove, a member of Mayors for Peace, is here representing Pacific Grove to welcome us. Mayors for Peace is an international organization of cities dedicated to the promotion of peace. It was established in 1982 by Hiroshima Mayor Takeshi Araki in response to the atomic bombing on August 6, 1945. Since then, mayors throughout the world have signed on. There are now 8,174 member cities in 166 countries and regions. Thank you, Mayor Peake, for coming tonight.
Thank you, Beverly. Very much appreciated. Thank you to the Monterey County branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom for holding this annual special event here in Pacific Grove at Lovers Point Beach. I'm accompanied by Council Member Lori McDonald, who's showing her support, Pacific Grove City Government support for this cause. I also think that I can speak for all 12 Monterey County mayors, and you're going to hear from one additional mayor here in a moment, who will say that the need to end the use of nuclear weapons is even greater than ever before. Other speakers will say this more eloquently than me, but that the message is still the same. I support all levels of government to find solutions to end the possibility of nuclear war and the tragedies that would result. Everyone's voice needs to be heard in pursuit of the same. Thank you.
I also want to thank Mayor Peak and the Pacific Grove City Council for voting this year to make us a city-sponsored event, which makes our lives much easier and lets us know that they value what we've been doing. So thank you to the city. Our next speaker is Mayor Marianne Carbone of Sand City. She is our newest Mayor for Peace, and I would like to introduce and welcome her and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Beverly. To begin, I was asked to, usually at events, I always try to recognize our local indigenous groups. So I'll say in my tongue, the Chumash language, Haku, Haku, La'u, Wash, Washets, Matika, Marianne Carbone. That's hello, how are you? My name's Marianne Carbone. And my family is descendants from the island of Lamu, that's the Channel Islands, and the village is Soktanoknu. My ancestors migrated to the area hundreds of years ago and lived here amongst the Esalen and Ohlone people and intermingled. And so we've been here for generations. I'm Sand City's first woman and indigenous mayor. I represent, in the state of California, there are several indigenous elected officials that represent 750,000 natives in California alone. So at this time, I'd like to acknowledge the first people of the land, the Esalen tribe, and their ancestors who inhabited and cared for this land for eons. I ask whenever you come to visit, work, or play to please remember and to acknowledge these people and their ancestors of this beautiful land. We only have one Mother Earth, the one who sustains us with nourishment and gives us shelter, and it's right to treat her with respect. So with that, I'll give a quick little prayer. Kinono he alape, kutye kuthil unku, nuna alawe, ka ke alisa, ka oxhill alape, ka oxhill shoop, ka oxhill swapin, kilikil alape, kilikil soup, kilikil swapin, kilikil unku, Kahontek Elisal. And that is our prayer to our grandfather above. You see me and you see the people. You bring the sun and the moon. We love the sky, the land, and the ocean. You watch over the heavens and the people. We believe and so we pray. I hope. Now, with that, I will put on my mayor's hat. And I'd like to humbly begin with good tidings from the city of Sand City, and to say I'm here to give thanks and gratitude to the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and to all the volunteers who I seen here working today. I came a little bit early, and I seen the volunteers really doing some hard work, hauling the chairs and the tables, you know, and so, you know, they work together with this league to host this touching and beautiful Hiroshima-Nagasaki Remembrance ceremony, along with a big thank you to Catherine Crockett, president of the Monterey Peace and Justice Center, for reaching out to me a few weeks ago to include Sand City to become involved with the Mayors for Peace. We recently met up at the Race Relations Summit, so she's a busy person too, and she invited me to be here today. And I would like to say that Sand City, I have a resolution. Our city has joined as the last city on the peninsula, so for Mayors for Peace. So we're happy to do that and to fill that void. The last one, I didn't know that we weren't. So yes, we are. So Mayors for Peace was founded in 1982 by the mayors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. The network is working toward two main objectives: ridding the world of nuclear weapons and the realization of safe and resilient cities. As of May 4th, 2023, the network includes, this may be wrong, 8,256 member cities with 160 countries and regions. I, as a local government official, carry many responsibilities, not only within my city's jurisdiction, but regionally as well. I believe that decision-making at the local level will create rippling effects globally. There are many uncertainties and changes that we as a country are experiencing in our country's government at the federal level, with many Americans looking to local government for answers, stability, and trust. Most recently, the war in Ukraine has resurrected nuclear threats from Russia, the denial of critical thinking of rapid climate action impacts the environment that we depend on to live, the needless destruction and loss of so many lives. Our children are being called into duty and sent overseas, many of them returning with PTSD and nightmares of losing comrades. I know I have a 19-year-old great niece who did 2 terms already. The U.S. bombings of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, and Nagasaki on April 9, 1945, killed hundreds of thousands of people and destroyed 2 cities. In a letter to the Eugene event, Hiroshima Mayor Kazumi Matsu wrote of his desires for a world free of nuclear weapons. The road to abolishment will not be smooth, but if each of us in civil society sustain an unshakable conviction that nuclear weapons are totally unacceptable and share the conviction persuasively with people around the world, we can compel world leaders to turn away from nuclear detriment. Community member Mike Takasaki read from a letter. Some of you listening know already that I'm Sand City's first mayor and California's first Indigenous mayor. Every morning when I wake up, I offer a prayer to Creator and give thanks and honor to the land, our Mother Earth, and prayers for peace. As a mayor, it's my job to take our values and create meaningful policies that provide structure, safety, and resilience in our communities. I also meet up with other mayors throughout the county monthly, first Friday of the month, to discuss and share ideas and interests. And that would be along with your own mayor, Bill Peak. Those interests may include water, clean air quality, renewable clean energy, child care, homelessness, high quality education, infrastructure, affordable housing, veterans, our aging population, to name a few, that create safe and resilient communities. Local officials can make these efforts happen. It is my honor to join you here today and to remember those whose lives were ended and the Hibakusha who remained affected by the tragedy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. With all of us committed to change, change is achievable. So I think that in local government, we can create change with a rippling effect, and it would, just keep going. So I made a little lantern out there, and that's what I put on my lantern. Once again, thank you, and together we can make a difference. And I have with me this wonderful proclamation from the city of Sand City, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks for the update on the number of mayors for peace. You did your research more recently than I did. Next, we have Troy Ishikawa, who will tell us the story of the paper cranes.
Thank you, Beverly. This is our plea, this is our prayer, peace in the world. The story of Sadako Sasaki gives us a poignant reminder that each one of us has the power to influence the world. Sadako Sasaki was 2 years old on August 6, 1945, when pilot Paul Tibbett of the United States Air Force flew his B-29 bomber over the city of Hiroshima. Unlike the many other bombers that had flown over Hiroshima, Tibbett's bomber, the Enola Gay, was much different than previous ones because it carried an atomic bomb named Little Boy. By order of President Harry S. Truman, Tibbett and his crew dropped one of the most powerful bombs ever created over the city of a population of approximately 350,000 people. The story of a young girl who lived throughout the bombing and eventually died from leukemia as a result is just one of many stories from Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. Yet Sadako's story still resonates with many people today. Sadako and her family lived a little over 1 mile from the ground zero, the bomb's hypocenter. A blinding white light flashed through the city, and a huge explosion was heard miles away when Little Boy detonated over Sadako's hometown. Immediately, fires ignited in the heat of the blast broke out all over the city, and radioactive black rain began to fall from the sky. Sadako and her mother and brother escaped the fires. Sadako's grandmother was leaving with Sadako and her family, but turned back to retrieve some family heirlooms from their home. She was never seen again. Sadako's father was not in Hiroshima at the time of the bombing. He was reunited with his family after the bombing, and they returned to Hiroshima to rebuild their lives. Like many others living in Hiroshima following World War II, the Sasaki family struggled with sickness, financial hardship, food scarcity, and the uncertainty of their family's future. They mourned the loss of their grandmother, neighbors, and friends. Sasaki family would also grieve for Sadako when she became sick with leukemia, called atomic bomb disease by some in Hiroshima, because the cancer was likely caused by the radioactive black rain that fell on Sadako and Hiroshima on the day of the bombing. By all appearances, until Sadako exhibited signs of illness, she was a happy and healthy child. She was known to be a fast runner and popular with her classmates. That is why it came as such a surprise when at the age of 12, Sadako began to show signs of leukemia and had to be admitted into the hospital. While in the hospital, Sadako remained optimistic and resilient. Even though Sadako was sick, her upbeat attitude continued to bring happiness and cheer to her family and friends. Sadako was very happy the day the Red Cross Youth Club gave her and the other children staying in the hospital origami cranes. Origami cranes were thought to help people who were sick become well again. Sadako's father was visiting her at the hospital when she asked him, "Why did they send us origami cranes, father?" He answered the question by telling Sadako the Japanese legend of the crane. Japanese folklore says that a crane can live for 1,000 years, and a person who folds in an origami crane for each year of a crane's life will have their wish granted. The story of the origami cranes inspired Sadako. She had a new passion and purpose to have her wish of being well again granted by folding 1,000 origami cranes. Sadako began collecting hundreds of pieces of paper for her cranes. Sadako soon filled her room with hundreds of colorful origami cranes of all different sizes. After folding her 1,000th crane, Sadako made her wish to be well again and to run with her school's relay team. Sadly, her wish did not come true. She remained ill, but did not lose her faith in origami cranes. Sadako began folding more cranes for her father's death to be forgiven, her new wish. Sadako continued to fold cranes. some as small as a grain of rice, until her last moments. Surrounded by family, with 1,300 origami cranes in her room and overhanging overhead, Sadako passed away at the age of 12 in October 1955. When Sadako first realized how sick she was when many thoughts and questions, she worried about her family and if people would remember her. Sadako asked herself, how can I make the world a better place while I'm still alive? She wanted to leave the world a more peaceful place, and she shared those thoughts and feelings with her family and friends. Though Sadako did not know her impact on the world when she died, she did make the world a better place. Sadako's resilient spirit and her origami cranes inspired her friends and classmates to raise money for a monument for Sadako and the children who died as a result of atomic bombings. Since being dedicated in 1958, thousands have visited the statue of Sadako in Hiroshima's Peace Memorial Park, and many more send origami cranes in memory of Sadako to the park. On top of the monument, Sadako's figure lifts a large paper crane overhead, and around the sides of the monument are angels representing the thousands of children that perished in the bombing. Inscribed at the foot of Sadako's statue is a plaque that reads, "This is our plea, this is our prayer, peace in the world." Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Every year we have this story told. I don't think it's ever been done any better. Next we have, who has become our poet laureate, Jennifer Felguth, to read a poem written by her especially for this event.
Thank you. The poet Amanda Gorman wrote, "Poetry can lamp an era scraped hollow." This is my poem, Illumination. Let us project light against darkness, atone for carnage committed in our name, cultivate a garden of nonviolence, embrace kindness, inclusivity, respect. Let us combine energy and optimism, transform a war-ravaged world, join hands and hearts, nourish healing and hope. Within this protected cove overlooking the Pacific, we come together in common purpose, launch a flotilla of commemorative luminaries, envision a global community united in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Love your new poem. We are honored to have Sharat Lin with us tonight as our keynote speaker. Dr. Sharat Lin writes and lectures on global political economy, labor migration, social movements, and public health. He is presently affiliated with Human Agenda, the San Jose Peace and Justice Center, and the Initiative for Equality, and has long been a prominent community activist for world peace and social justice. He received his PhD at UC Berkeley in medical physics and is a noted political economist. He is a contributing author and the curator of The Art of Protest, a traveling exhibit of silkscreen posters of social protest, and a dancer of the Dance of Peace. Sharat has studied and reported on conflicts and uprisings such as the Lebanese Civil War and the Arab Spring. He has traveled to many countries with which the U.S. government is at odds in an effort to build people-to-people friendship, including Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, and China. In 2018, he visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki on the 73rd anniversary of the U.S. dropping of the atomic bombs to deliver an apology from the American people to the Japanese people. Sharat.
Well, thank you very much, Beverly, and thank you very much for all of you who have organized this marvelous event, and thank you all for being here. I'm truly honored. And yes, so I will start off by talking a little bit about my visit to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I've been wanting to do this trip for a long time, I brought my son along with me, and I was invited by a number of groups to to address them on the occasion of the anniversary. And I thought, okay, it would be a small gathering, but I had a huge auditorium with about 700 people in Hiroshima, and I delivered this apology, because this apology is something that no U.S. president has ever been willing to do, to apologize for the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Instead, what we hear is this continuing narrative that the U.S. bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was actually saved lives because it would end the war sooner. It's a myth, and I'll get into that. But I was very much moved by the fact that there were multiple. I couldn't even count all the different ceremonies that were taking place in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, organized by different organizations, organized by the local governments, and it was really moving that everyone in Hiroshima and everyone in Nagasaki understood the meaning and the threat and the terror of nuclear weapons, and the nuclear weapons must never be allowed to be used again. Now, I then went to the various museums and the displays in both of these cities, and there is no mention of the notion that the bombs had any kind of reasonable justification. And indeed, let's get into that story. There were two bombs, as you all know. A uranium bomb was dropped on Hiroshima on August 6th, 1945. A plutonium bomb was dropped on Nagasaki on August 9th, 1945. Now, the notion that these ended the war sooner are belied by the fact that the Emperor Hirohito had ordered his ambassador to Moscow to deliver a message to Stalin, because Japan had diplomatic relations with Russia, but it did not have diplomatic relations with the United States at that time. So the message was delivered to Stalin to then give to Harry Truman. Remember that this was in the middle of June 1945, 1.5 months before the bombs were dropped. That letter said that Japan was ready to surrender under only one condition, that the institution of the emperor, of the monarchy of Japan, be preserved. That was the only condition. That message was delivered to Truman. He chose consciously to ignore it. He chose consciously to ignore it for three reasons. One was that the bomb should be dropped to show U.S. power, to make a statement to the rest of the world that the United States is number one, even at the cost of what would be 210,000 human lives. The second reason was to prevent Russia from entering the war against Japan, even at the last minute, because if Russia had entered that war, Russia would take some credit and for defeating Japan, and would have a say in the armistice, in the surrender of Japan. And the third reason, tragically, was to actually test these bombs on human population, that the people of Hiroshima and the people of Nagasaki would be guinea pigs for a so-called scientific experiment. That's why the first bomb was the uranium bomb, and the second one was a plutonium bomb, because they wanted to test both of them. That's how warped this mentality was. Okay, let's come quickly to the present. You know, there's been a lot of talk in this country about non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. We have a treaty called the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's a good thing, except that it preserves the monopoly of the 5 nuclear powers, the United States, Russia, Britain, France, and China, to have their nuclear weapons. And it seeks to prevent other countries from having nuclear weapons, which that part is a good thing, but the other problem is that it doesn't say anything about the nuclear weapons of the 5 nuclear powers. And then there are 4 other countries that have joined the nuclear club, and one that has been sort of accused of trying to break into the nuclear club, namely Iran. And all kinds of sanctions have been placed on Iran to prevent it from having nuclear weapons, yet no such sanctions have been imposed over the long term against India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea, even though North Korea is also under sanctions. But the point is that the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty doesn't really solve the problem. What we need, because here we are today, we have a war in Ukraine. The threat of nuclear war once again hangs over our head. And so in 2017, a very important thing happened, and that was the signing of the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons that would abolish nuclear weapons once and for all by all countries. So it took 4 years for that treaty for enough countries to ratify it that it would go into effect. So it's now in effect, but it only applies to those countries that have signed it. The United States, Russia, China, Britain, France, all the nuclear powers have not signed it. But what's more interesting is this: if you look at the map of the countries that have signed the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, one of the regions that is an absolute blackout in terms of signing it is Western Europe. And Western Europe has been very progressive in the prohibition of other kinds of weapons, right? Such as biological weapons, such as chemical weapons, such as cluster munitions, such as landmines. Why Europe is not taking the lead in this case? It's because those countries are members of NATO. The problem with NATO is NATO commits every member state to be a part of a nuclear posture. That nuclear weapons are an essential element of NATO's defense posture. This was reaffirmed in 2012. It was reaffirmed again in 2022. And so NATO is actually an obstacle to the abolition of nuclear weapons. Now, when Russia collapsed in 1991, I was one of the advocates for the dissolution of NATO. You dissolve the Warsaw Pact, why not dissolve NATO? And I don't have time to get into it, but you know, with the Ukraine war, with the fact that the United States is pushing more countries to join NATO, we have a situation where it's not making us safer. In fact, it's making us less safe, because it's raising the tensions, and it is committing more and more countries to be part of this so-called defense posture, which integrates the use of nuclear weapons, makes it permanent. So we must work to dismember NATO, to reduce tensions in the world, to stop the antagonisms that are unprovoked towards China, towards other countries, and a lot of this has to start right here in the United States, because the United States is responsible for these tensions, for the tensions that are caused by the expansion of NATO, by the trade war with China. It's really starting here in this country. So it is incumbent upon us it is incumbent upon us to continue and to ramp up the pressure on our representatives in Congress, to the candidates who run for office, that we must take decisive steps. This is one of the two existential threats to human existence. One is climate change, the other one is nuclear war. We must take these steps, and we have to take that leadership right here and in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharat. I invite you all to join Sharat when he comes to talk on various subjects at the Peace and Justice Center. As you can see, he's a wealth of information. Thank you again for coming. We're happy to have Michael Dempsey, President of the Veterans for Peace, Monterey Chapter 46, to speak to us. Michael?
Thank you. The National Office of Veterans for Peace released the following statement May 30th, 2016. The people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki experienced the horror of nuclear bombs dropped on their churches, their schools, their homes, their streets, and their families. Today, the survivors of those bombs, known as the Habakushi, I think I said that right, continue to appeal to the world to rid itself of these terrible weapons of mass destruction and mass suffering. We continue to be dismayed at the lack of accountability that the U.S. has taken towards unleashing these most devastating attacks the world has ever seen. The U.S. remains the only country in the world that has used nuclear weapons, and which the side effects are still being felt today. Veterans for Peace now takes up the call of the Habakushi. We who have trained for war and experienced war know it's meaningless, violence, futility, and lies and false promises. We want to abolish war to end the violence of military intervention and the threats of nuclear destruction. Together with the courageous Habakushi survivors, we call on the world to rid itself of nuclear weapons and the intolerance once and for all. Veterans for Peace expresses our deepest condolences to all those who were killed and maimed and to the families. We apologize to the Habakushi, the survivors of the nuclear bombings, and we thank them for their courageous continuing witness. We apologize to all the Japanese people and to all the people of the world. This tragedy, this hugely atrocious crime against humanity should have never happened. As military veterans, we have come to see the tragic futility of war and the promises that we will continue working for peace and disarmament. We want to see nuclear weapons abolished forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, very much. Carol Erickson of the Society of Friends and the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom will read a message from the Japanese Buddhist priests to close the program.
This message was delivered in Berkeley with the local Buddhist temple contributing the speakers. In this time of hate, chaos, and uncertainty, let us reaffirm our desire to bring peace and compassion to everyone and everything in this world. Let us not only remember those who perished in Hiroshima, and Nagasaki, but in their memory, let us remember as well all people and all beings throughout the world who have lost their lives in war and hate, and those who have suffered from loss of loved ones in war. May this gathering be an inspiration to the whole world, that each of us here tonight promises to work for the cause of peace and harmony for the sake of humankind. In the spirit of oneness, with trust in infinite compassion and wisdom, we set forth these peace lanterns, quotes, with the hope that the light from each and every lantern will inspire hope and peace throughout this world and in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Carol gives us that final prayer every year. Tai Chi Master Jim Scott Behrens will play the flute, and prior to the lantern floating, Sharat Lin will perform his dance of peace on the beach. We ask for your quiet attention while the lanterns are afloat. This is a time for thought, prayer, and meditation, mixed with sadness and hope. Thanks to the kayakers and to Lynn Hamilton, who organized them for this event, and thanks to everyone for your participation.
You're always my tallest.
Okay.
Where would you like?
It's right there.
you.